view of the fact that the previous problems we had written about in our recommendation have not been solved. There have been some improvements, but the main issues remain. Let me just briefly mention them. The appointment of legally elected judges to the court. Secondly, the publication of all the rulings of the court. And thirdly, the legislation on the functioning of the court. These issues have not been solved, and new issues have come forward on the basis of the new legislation. So today, after a discussion, we have decided to send additional recommendations to Poland. These recommendations will be made public shortly once they are translated, duly translated and reviewed. And we then invite the Polish government to react, to respond to these additional recommendations within a time frame of 2 months. And after that, we will see, on the basis of that response, which further measures we might need to take. That is what we've done. We do believe there is a persistent problem with the rule of law. I think this is a substantial challenge for the rule of law in Poland, and the rule of law is the basis upon which a whole European structure is built. We have seen very clearly in recent times that in all of our member states, the independence of the judiciary is a fundamental element for the functioning of our societies, for the functioning of the internal market, for the protection of the individual rights of our citizens. The whole structure, since the Second World War in the free part of Europe and since the end of the European divide in the whole of Europe, is based on the fact that the rule of law, democracy and respect for human rights go hand in hand. You cannot use democracy against the rule of law. You cannot use the rule of law against democracy. And they are both essential elements to also have full respect of human rights. We will not drop this issue. We will use any instrument we have in our toolbox if we deem that necessary. We feel a strong, strong feeling of solidarity with the Polish people, who deserve, like all Europeans, to have an independent judiciary, to have a full separation of powers in their country.
Catherine Fior, EU reporter. You outlined that you said that you would respond with further measures if you didn't receive a satisfactory response. What are the possible further measures? Can you outline what they might be? And some of the more draconian options appear to be unlikely to receive the support of of the European Council. So I'm wondering if there is a consensus that's already been developed on what should be the way forward this 2-month period. Thank you.
Well, you know probably perfectly well that in the rule of law framework that we apply, at some stage we could launch Article 7 procedures. That's probably what you're asking about. We will not exclude any measure that we can take in the framework of the rule of law framework, but we will cross that bridge when we get there. It is in our toolbox. I have done my utmost, sometimes under difficult circumstances, to maintain a dialogue with the Polish government, because I desperately want to solve this problem. Because, again, I believe every single Polish citizen has a right on a clear division of power. Every Polish citizen has a right to know that the judge he sees or she sees is not under instruction by a political party or a government to rule. This is something every European citizen should be sure of. And in this issue with the Constitutional Tribunal, there is a serious issue of the independence of the highest court of the land. And that's why we have engaged in this dialogue with the Polish government. We will continue to pursue that dialogue, but if that dialogue at the end of the day does not lead to results, we will also have to look into other options, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to Anna.
Thank you, Anna Słojewska, Polish Daily Rzeczpospolita. But what makes you think that the situation in 2 months' time will be different than it is now? I mean, why, I mean, we already reached this breach. You initiated this procedure almost 1 year ago. As you said yourself, main problems have not been solved. New problems have arisen. So what makes you think that it will be better?
I think it's only fair, now that there is new legislation, that we also use the instrument of recommendation to look at that new legislation. That doesn't mean that the old problems have gone. They're still on the table. But perhaps if we now send recommendations on this new legislation, it might lead to the Polish government reconsidering its position. It is clear that the way, for instance, this issue came up all of a sudden, which is nowhere to be found in the Polish constitution, of appointing an acting president of the Constitutional Tribunal, and then the way in which, very swiftly, with very a small number of judges participating, a decision was made to present 2 candidatures to the President of the Republic, the way the President immediately decided to appoint someone. These are issues that I think need to be discussed. Normally, this sort of legislation would have been put before the Constitutional Tribunal so it could give its opinion whether these are compatible with the Constitution. This did not happen. So we have a lot of questions. But I think in the cooperative attitude I've taken for a year now, I think it is only fair that I would give the Polish government an opportunity to react now that they have introduced new legislation. But once again, and I feel a deep sense of solidarity with the Polish people, whom I also represent. I'm also their commissioner. I will not drop this issue. This commission will not drop this issue. We will pursue this issue until we have a solution.